Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Laura Cosette. I'm the Senior Program Officer at Partners of the Americas, and we're going to go ahead and wait just a couple of seconds here to allow people to file in and get set up. But thank you so much for joining us today. All right, let's actually go ahead and get started. Looks like we have most people already in. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, my name is Laura Cosette, and I am the Senior Program Officer for the 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund. And today, our webinar will be on tips and strategies for developing your Innovation Fund proposals for the 2021 Innovation Fund competition to build partnerships and training programs between the United States, Central America, and the Dominican Republic. So in this webinar, we'll start off with some remarks from Maggie Hug from the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs at the U.S. Department of State, who will share a bit about the Innovation Fund. I will then go over some logistics about how to apply the specific requirements and eligibility for this competition. And then we'll pass on to the meat of the presentation, which will be the different components of the proposal, as well as the evaluation criteria and some tips and strategies, as well as tips and strategies from our esteemed 100K beneficiary guest, Dr. Laurie Stevens from the University of Vermont. And we'll go ahead and close out with a question and answer portion. However, you can submit questions at any time throughout the webinar, and we'll be behind the scenes responding to those as well via the Q&A portion of your Zoom window. And just a couple of logistics. We will be sending all the materials from this webinar in a follow-up email, and it will all be available on our website as well within the next 5 business days. So you'll get this presentation, Dr. Stevens's presentation, a bunch of different links and resources to help you with your application process. And with that, I'll pass it off to Maggie.
Thank you, Laura. Muy buenas tardes, good afternoon, or buenos dias, depending on where you're from. We know we have people joining us from all over Central America and the United States and potentially the Dominican Republic. So I just want to say on behalf of the Department of State and the 100K team at the Department of State, and with my colleagues at Partners of the Americas, welcome, bienvenidos. As Laura said, the idea of today is for all of you listening to get an idea about how, if you're not sure about how to apply for these 100K grants, what we call CIENCAL, el Fondo de Innovación, we want to give you tips, strategies, lessons learned about how to build partnerships between the US and Central America and the Dominican Republic, as well as the actual nitty-gritty, the details about applying for the grant. We love it when people are telling us where they're from. So if you're coming in from Central America or Dominican Republic or the USA, feel free to throw it up in the chat box. We will also use this chat box to answer as many questions in real time as possible. And as Laura said, even after the webinar, we can be answering questions. So I want to thank everybody at Partners of the Americas who helped put this together. You're going to hear from one of our favorite, I like to call them 100K program leaders, one of our ambassadors, Dr. Laurie Stevens. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Laurie Stevens and her team at University of Vermont and the team in Guatemala, her contraparte. I've known them for over 2 years, and they have done amazing work, continue to do amazing work, even throughout the pandemic with their teams of students between the US and Guatemala. I also want to call out a colleague. I can see that she's joined, Maria Luisa, who is and I'm not sure if we can put on her camera, Maria Luisa from Guardica, from the US Embassy in Guatemala. Maria Luisa is an Education USA advisor. And I can't say it enough how much, one, We appreciate the work of Education USA to help connect US colleges, universities, community colleges to the region. And so Maria Luisa, if you don't know her, you know, she's based in Guatemala. We can share her contact information, or Maria Luisa, feel free to add your contact information in the chat box. Education USA is a big help to what we do with 100K. Why? Because again, they have programs, they have services. Their job is to help US institutions connect, in her case with Guatemala, but also the region. So I just want to say that this is really, really important. It's wonderful that we have people from Connecticut and New Jersey and all over. So this is wonderful, wonderful. Alabama, this is great. And New Orleans is great. So Laura, I don't know if there's a page after this slide or not. It goes right into yours.
It does go right into mine. Was there a particular slide you wanted?
No, leave it right. We can leave it. Maria Luisa, thank you. Education USA Guatemala, that you have her information. If you're based in Guatemala and you have questions about how to work with 100K and how to work with US institutions, please reach out to any of us, but also Maria Luisa, we cannot thank you enough. And again, just really quickly, we want to say right from the top, we know that these are very, very challenging times because of the pandemic. We know there's a lot of incertidumbre, a lot of uncertainty. Our schools and universities and colleges and community colleges, are they going back full-time, hybrid? We know this is a very confusing time. At the same time, what we want you to know is that las oportunidades a través del Fondo de Innovación, the 100K Innovation Fund grants are designed to help teams in the US build partnerships, in this case with higher education institutions in Central America and the Dominican Republic. To build the partnerships, you can build brand new partnerships, or you can work on existing partnerships. And the idea is that you would, together as teams, US, Central America, US, Dominican Republic, you're building a brand new program. You're building a brand new opportunity for your students at your home institutions to be able to work in teams, both virtually and in person from their home institutions, and that we always want that intercambio académico. We're always looking for how you can design your program that allows the students to work at their home institutions, but then to have that intercambio en persona. And we are here to help answer questions throughout the convocatoria. This convocatoria closes at the beginning of August, as many of you know. We can't encourage you enough to work very carefully with your teams, to be creative, be pragmatic, to think, how can you take the $25,000 grant and work together in your teams to use that funding, if you are awarded this opportunity, and actually add to it with in-kind contributions or cash contributions from local companies, and we'll talk more about that later. How can you design an innovative short-term academic exchange programs that, again, take place on your home institution campus, your home institutions, but have that intercambio in the host? So US students to Central America or the DR, or DR Central America students to the US. Think of the 100K grants as a tool in your toolbox to create partnerships and brand new training programs. And as Dr. Laurie Stevens will talk about in a minute, it's filled with opportunities, filled with challenges, and filled with incredible opportunities for your students to gain new skills in a variety of academic fields, and to have that think of it as workforce development. Again, virtually and in person, these are one-year grants. So with that, I'm just going to say, think of the 100K team in DC, where a lot of us are based in DC, and think about the Education USA teams based in the field, Maria Luisa and her team in Guatemala, and the team at Partners Americas. We are here to answer questions, and we encourage you to be creative and to go for it, and to use the 100K grants to your advantage. Ya con eso, mil gracias, Laura, y seguimos adelante con el resto.
Great, thanks so much, Maggie. All right, so now we're going to dive into some of the logistics of where to start applying for a 100K Innovation Fund grant. So the first step is to join the Innovation Network, which is our free network of higher education institutions across the Americas. And you can do so on our website by clicking on the menu item that I've highlighted above. And by signing up, you'll be able to receive news and updates about competitions, conferences, these webinars, etc., as well as access several resources for connecting with other higher education institutions. So this is a great place to connect with others, find a potential partner, and see what other resources we have available, as well as receive our newsletter with important updates. And our application is available online on our website by going to grants and then application portal. There you'll create a profile and then start your application. And if you're interested in learning more about that, we do have more about that. You know, you're welcome to explore the website, and we have more information on that in our past webinar. So our current open competition is the 2021 Innovation Fund Grant Competition to build partnerships and training programs between the United States, Central America, and the Dominican Republic, which has been generously supported by Agroamerica and the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. And as Maggie mentioned, the application deadline is August 2nd of this year. And if you're interested in learning more about that competition, in case you haven't already read the RFP, you can visit our website here and access the RFP and learn more about this particular competition. However, I will say that the information we'll be going over today is relevant for every grant competition that we have. So even though this is the only competition we have open at the moment, this information is useful for any of our grant competitions. For this particular competition, there are 12 Innovation Fund grants available of $25,000 US. The eligible countries are United States, as well as Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, Belize, and the Dominican Republic. For this particular competition, these are the only eligible countries. However, we launch several competitions every year, and there are different eligible countries in each of these competitions. These are some of the eligible thematic areas. Again, if you're interested in reading more about these, you can find that in the RFP, the request for a proposal, on our website. And if you're not sure if your proposed program might fall under one of these categories, we want to remind you that these are guidelines, there is flexibility, and if you can sufficiently justify that your academic area falls within the realm of the RFP, then it will be considered eligible. So for the application, there are various components that are necessary. So there's the application form itself online, where you'll input various pieces of information. And then there's the proposal itself, which is the technical narrative, the budget summary, the budget narrative, and the supporting documents. Those are the components we'll be going over today. And there's also the partner information request form, which must be completed by the application deadline. To learn more about all this, you're welcome to go to our website and sign into the portal actually at any time, and then you can see the different components that are required. All right, so now let's get into the evaluation criteria for 100K grant proposals. So the first portion is the technical proposal, which makes up 80% of the evaluation criteria, which consists of a cover page, table of contents, the executive summary and program description, the sustainability plan, institutional capacity, and then the monitoring and evaluation plan. And the other 20% is the cost proposal, which is the budget summary and the budget narrative. We also require supporting documents, which are the CVs or resumes of the project implementers, as well as letters of support from all the involved institutions. And we do have a page limit for the technical proposal of 10 pages, and any other page limits or anything like that are noted on our website and in the RFP. And we do want to note that all applications and supporting documents must be submitted in English. So please make sure to submit everything in English. For the executive summary and program description, which counts for 40% of the evaluation, what we're looking for is clear program goals and objectives, including student learning goals. We're looking for detailed descriptions of anticipated student activities, as well as the proposed timeline. And then we're also looking for what is the justification for this program? Why is it innovative? What does it offer? How does it meet the goals of the 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund? We're interested as well in the number of students that will travel. And here, student mobility is a requirement of 100K grants. And while we prefer bidirectional mobility, that's to say from the US to Latin America and the Caribbean, and from Latin America and Caribbean to the US, it's not mandatory, but at least one way direction is required, and students must receive some level of credit. So our biggest advice here is just be clear, concise, and specific about your program goals, objectives, and student learning goals. And a good piece of advice is make sure reviewers aren't left with any questions about the design and purpose of your proposal. The sustainability plan makes up 15% of the proposal evaluation. And here we're basically looking for how can this program be continued after the initial year of 100K funding. The idea of 100K is to give seed funding that allows institutions to build their capacity and create innovative programs which can be implemented beyond the 1-year grant period. So here we're looking for concrete plans and actions, including how will you secure buy-in and support from not only your partnering institutions, but also any other stakeholders you might have involved. We're particularly interested in how you will secure financial commitments and how you will receive additional funding in order to assure that this will in fact be able to continue beyond the grant period. And here we're also looking for specificity. For the institutional capacity challenges and opportunities for growth section, we're looking for you to demonstrate the capacity of your institution as well as your partner institution to administer study abroad programs, as well as an awareness of what your current challenges may be, as well as, and this is very important, your plans to overcome or address them, which can be closely related to opportunities that may arise from these challenges and from this grant opportunity. And it's important to note that this should be an analysis for all of the involved partner institutions, not just the prime applicants. For this section, there are required letters of support from your institution. Ideally, this is from, for example, your international education office. While letters from a department are good and they show support, we're really looking for high-level institutional commitment to this program, as well as the CVs and resumes of the primary investigators. For the letters of support, it should be, as I mentioned, your institution, your partnering institutions, and any other involved organizations such as local businesses, NGOs, local governments, lo que sea, whatever, whoever might be involved in your project. So a strong institutional capacity, challenges, and opportunities for growth will address all three of these components for all involved institutions. Make sure you have solid letters of support. And a weaker section would not address all three components. We see that somewhat frequently where some applications expand very deeply on the institutional capacity, but they don't address challenges and opportunities for growth. And we're really looking for all three sections, make sure everything is in English. And a note on that, the reason that we require all proposal documents to be submitted in English is that not all of our reviewers speak Spanish or Portuguese. For the monitoring and evaluation plan, this is where you say, okay, how are we going to be able to make sure that we're achieving the goals and objectives that we outlined in the program description? So one important thing to know is that we provide an M&E template that we strongly recommend that you use. Often, if an applicant doesn't use the template, we'll have reviewers say, I wish they had used the 100K template. It helps guide you in exactly what you should present, and it's also very easy for reviewers to read and understand. So here, we're looking for SMART goals and objectives, which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So here we're looking for the who, what, how, and when. So make sure to be specific here and make sure that whatever you put in your M&E plan lines up with what you had in the program description. So again, here you can see that on the left-hand side, we have our template, which is a good example, gives you exactly the format we're looking for, whereas The version on the right-hand side is a little bit more difficult to understand and doesn't necessarily address the requirements of this section. Next is the budget summary, which is the Excel table spreadsheet that breaks down all the costs. And again, we provide a budget summary template, which we advise that you use because it outlines, again, exactly what we're looking for. And we grade on overall clarity. So this means how easy is it to read, making sure that all the calculations are correct. Be sure to request the full grant funds. There's nothing that makes your proposal more competitive if you ask for example, 23,000 instead of the full 25. The intent is to give the full 25,000. So be sure to budget for all of those costs up to 25,000, and please provide costs in US dollars and be as specific as possible. We also score on indirect costs, which are the sometimes called NICRA, sometimes called the administrative costs. The maximum allowable of indirect costs charged to the grant is 20%, but please note that the lower the indirect cost, the better, and your proposal will be considered especially competitive if you're able to cost share the indirect costs. However, we of course always take the institutional capacity and resources of institutions in mind when we do review these proposals. And for cost share, we're looking for at least a 1-to-1 match. However, typically our grant winners propose a 1.5 or more to 1 match. And this is cost sharing from the primary institution as well as the partner institution and any other outside resources. So of course, the more you can cost share, the better, but we do take all the context of each institution into consideration. And good examples of cost share are the personnel, any sort of student costs that will be covered by the institution, faculty costs, especially if those can be covered by cost share, that's especially competitive, and expenses covered by students themselves, however, do not count as cost share. And again, we have a template here, which makes it pretty easy to complete this section satisfactorily. For the budget narrative, this is basically an explanation of your budget summary. So what we're looking for here is the explanation and justification of the items you have listed. And we're also looking for the cost estimation breakdowns. If you say that you're budgeting $1,000 for flights, how did you get to that calculation? We're looking for you to be as specific as possible, but at the same time, there is a 2-page limit on this. So you don't, be mindful of the page limit while also giving the necessary amount of detail for us to understand what it is that you're proposing and why. If you're wondering more about what costs are allowable and how to make this section as competitive as possible, we have a lot of information on that on our website at those 2 links. So in the end, these are the proposal checklist to make sure you have all these different components. And again, you can go back through this PowerPoint at any time. We'll be sending it to you, and all of this information is available on our website as well as in the RFP. And in summary, our final tips are to use the provided 100K templates, which are the M&E plan and the budget summary. We also have proposal samples. We have a complete proposal sample on our website, as well as a proposal budget narrative. Make sure everything is in English, and don't wait. You can actually begin your proposal today if you would like. You can go on our website, create your profile, and start the application so you can be sure that you have all the necessary components and get everything in on time. And that's, for me, I'm very technical. That's my perspective. I'm all about the logistics of applying. But now we are going to pass it off to Dr. Laurie Stevens, who has actually implemented and won a 100K grant and can speak from firsthand experience on how to develop a competitive grant proposal, as well as implement a 100K grant. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Dr. Stevens.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for that great introduction, Laura, and for all your support from both of during the year and few months that we've had our grant going. As you all probably know, we started and then this pandemic happened. And so here we are, and I'll tell you how we got here and what you can do to go forward. So I'm going to share my screen with my PowerPoint slides. And go from there. Oops. So the beginning is the beginning. So, this is the webinar, and there's a picture of me here just so that you'll know what I look like if you ever contact me or anything else. I'm going to have trouble with this because okay. So the questions I was asked to address are these 6 questions here. And I've put here very poignant pictures, I think. A picture of us when we went to Guatemala last year at the end of October to accept the award and to participate in the ceremony. And then at the end of August, when our student that had come northbound and had supposedly going to be here 6 weeks ended up being here closer to 4 or 5 months because of the pandemic. And a lesson in there is always reach out to the people, your sponsor, to help solve problems. So let's just go through the questions. How was your experience writing a 100K grant proposal? Was your winning proposal the first that you submitted? And I felt like the proposal provided an opportunity to formalize things that we had thought about for a while. Our proposal is to work on reforestation and Chagas disease in Guatemala. And I've been collaborating with my co-PI, Carlota Monroy, for 12 to 15 years. The winning proposal was the first one that we submitted, but we had actually applied for multiple funding. We'd received funding from the NIH, from the NSF, and other organizations. So we did have experience writing proposals together. So it wasn't the first one we wrote together. What lessons did I learn while writing about my 100K grant proposal? And this gets into one of the tips I want to give. We learned about service learning, assessment, and travel study. All of these topics I didn't really know a lot about, but thanks to the internet and Google searches and internet searches, I was able to Google these terms and learn a lot and, get some idea about what they were looking for in terms of these things, but also to get an idea of what would be a meaningful service learning, a meaningful assessment, and a meaningful travel study. So not just to fill in the blanks, but also to try to quickly understand and come up beat on these parts of the proposal that I wasn't already knowledgeable about. What would I do differently? First of all, I would talk with people at my university earlier and more often. And I think that's a problem that people have sometimes putting together a proposal. You think you have to have the whole idea or the whole first draft done. And you don't. You just start talking to people, get them on board, let them know what you're doing, and go forward. I would also talk to, and these include the people at my university, where the Office of International Education and the Grant and Contract Accounting, because they're going to have to approve the budget. And this budget is a little bit challenging because of the cost share is not typically what you find in a budget. And then you're going to want the school to sign off on perhaps waiving some of those indirect costs. So getting started on those conversations early helps you come up with a realistic budget about what your university's will to consider for cost sharing and for indirect costs. So what would be my advice in developing a proposal? The first thing, I would have an excellent collaborator. So I worked with Dr. Carlota Monroy in Guatemala, and she was the one that actually suggested it to us. And like I said, I've been collaborating with her for 12 to 15 years. We have a friendship as well as a professional relationship, and that really just made this whole project doable. The other thing that I did was I found a co-PI with experience. So Lotta wanted to look at reforestation, and I'm an insect population geneticist. So I found a colleague at UVM in forestry that was willing to come on board with it. And the great thing about this particular colleague is this particular colleague had led several study abroad service learning courses to Israel. And so she knew a lot about the paperwork that you go with through at UVM to get everything approved, but also some of the challenges and fun things that you can do with students on these courses to make everything work and come together. So that was a great boon. And so finding someone to collaborate with that complements your expertise, I can't say enough about how much that was worth. So also connect with other faculty on your campus that have done international service learning courses. So I know someone who had done service learning. I forget where she'd done it, but she sent me her budget page. And so having her budget Excel sheet was great to have something to go on in terms of forming a budget, understanding what was going on, learning about the different challenges that she had and everything was really important. So talk to faculty on your campus. And I think it's useful to do it on other campuses as well, but I think every university has their own little rules and regulations. So finding someone who's gone through the hoops at her university is a really important part. Talk with your institution Office of International Student Travel. I tried to do this early on and engage them and tell them how great this program was. I was applying, and actually after we got the grant funded, they contacted me and said, you know, we've been trying to get someone to apply to this for years and we're so happy that you got it. But when I was trying to apply for it, you know, I ran into a bit of resistance. And part of it is that my university has a timeline on taking students on international travel or developing an international travel course. And so that's where we get to the last point, talking with the funder. So my institution, it was clear that they were not going to let me come up with a plan that I could take students into the field or on a service learning course. I was writing this in July and I wanted to take them the next June, and that was not enough time for them to allow us to do it. So rather than argue with the people that I want to be working with a long time in the future, I talked with the funder. I said, you know, the timeline VM is just not feasible. And I actually attached the timeline as one of my appendices to the proposal so that they could see that the university, you know, didn't have, even though they were very excited about this program, they their timeline was not feasible. And that might be increasingly true because universities are more and more concerned about the safety of students and going both ways. They're concerned about the safety of students. So they want a lot of leeway to think about all the problems they can be. So I put this together with me and my co-PI with international education experience, and then the people that I talked to, and the fact that the arrows go both ways on it. There's multiple discussions. So another thing about my advice in developing a proposal would get to a lot of stuff that Laura said. Read and follow the directions. So if you go to the website, it tells you that you need a technical narrative that should, or the executive summary should be 1 to 2 pages. It tells you to put number 1, the program goals and objective. Point 2, key activities and anticipated results. So you're going to have people reviewing these. They're going to be reviewing more than one. Anything that you make easier for the reviewer to find and check off on that rubric that they're doing is going to make you look a little better in their eyes. So make sure that you follow the directions, make it easy for people to see. And on the second page of this document, I have point number 3, the managerial resources. Just, and like Laura was saying about using the templates, using the format and making it easy for them to check and see that you've got these parts and how you answer those questions is going to make it very friendly for the people who are doing the review for you. And it also makes it easier for you to write. You know what things they're interested in, You just plug them in. Again, anything that you are sure of, you can look on Google and find some ideas and talk with your colleagues and see if they'll fit with your program. If not, go on to another idea and so forth. So how can you collaborate with your partner institution to ensure that your proposal is strong as it can be? One of the things I think really helps get at this point is to work on the budget. So get a draft of a budget. Nothing's written in stone. Even after you're funded, you know, budgets or plans, they're not what they don't hold you exactly to them, but it gives you an idea of what you want to do and how you want to spend the money and how you want to develop things. So the budget's one part of it, but also just going back and forth with your collaborator and talking about it. Here's my idea, here's your idea, and sending different drafts back and forth is a really important part of getting this, the partner institution to be as strong as it can be. And when you get to a point in the proposal where you're stuck, just ask them. So I remember it being a little challenging about how the students in Guatemala would receive for it. And the collaborator was able to come up with some ideas really quickly that helped solve that. What resources did I use to bring the proposal? I used the colleagues on campus and the offices on campus for doing international research. So both of those were important in putting it together. And then another thing, again, I mentioned was talking to the funder. Like when I found out it was going to take 2 years, I said, can we just do a pilot in the first year? And they said, yes, you could do a pilot and then plan for 20 students the next year. So we did that. And I had to go back to everyone on campus and make sure that they would let me take 5 students into the field in the first year rather than 20. And that got okayed, but all that communication back and forth was really important to figuring out what was going to happen. And then other resources are, again, the dean and department chair. When my department chair found out about it, she was like, oh, we have some money. We can, you know, offer to pay some amount of money for the US students that are going to go to Guatemala. We can use our gift funds for that. And, you know, we might be able to pay a little bit for the Guatemala students come to the US after the program's over. And then also you're going to have to work with your grants office for the budget. So, and especially with the cost share part, talking to them early is going to be important. And so that's what I have to say. These are the pictures again, Maggie and I, when we went down there to receive the award, and are on the left here, and then my co-PI, Kimberly Wallen, who's now at North Dakota State University, me, and then Carlota Monroy and Antonietta Vodas, who have been my colleagues in Guatemala for 10 or 12 to 15 years now. So I want to stop here and let people ask questions and try to answer them. So I'm going to quit the screen share and go to the questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Stevens. Maggie, would you like to address some of the questions first? I'm happy to.
So
Do we see any questions?
mil
Oh no,
gracias.
is my audio not working?
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. Laurie, Dr. Laurie, your tips and your strategies are right on point. And we encourage everybody listening to take a look at Laurie's presentation. We'll be sending it out. We cannot stress the importance of everybody listening, whether you have applied before and another time for an 100K grant, or whether this is your very first time. We really want you to carefully read the RFP, the request for proposal document. That is your guideline. That is your roadmap. You need to read it carefully with your team on your home campus, so Central America or US, and vice versa. That is the key piece. And then as Laura explained, it also, we're very clear about what we're looking for in these proposals, the technical part, the budget part. Now, I want to talk about something I didn't mention at the top of the webinar, but I want to say something right now to everybody listening. These 100K grants have always, thank you, Laura. These 100K grants have always had, this is before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and since the pandemic, There have always been both the virtual types of exchanges in this 12-month grant, as well as the expected in person. So what we're looking for is for teams to show us in their proposals, okay, how could you take a team of 5, 10, 15 students from your home institution and take them to Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras, etc., and vice versa? How could you bring students 5, 10, 15 from Central America or the DR to the US? Now, if you have specific concerns about your country, the country in question, we can address those offline. What I want to say with everybody is, obviously, we know that there are travel warnings and things like that that the Department of State puts out. Those are guidelines. It does not mean that you cannot come up with programs that have that bilateral exchange, as we like to see with 100K, and we want to see that in the proposals. Remember, if these are you are working on proposals that are due in early August. If your team is selected, we're talking about programs that start in 2022. So things can change every month, every week, every year in terms of how things look in terms of travel warnings. And that is exactly what it is. They are warnings. It does not mean that you cannot carry out exchanges. It just means maybe you have to think creatively about the numbers to and from the US, to and from Central America. And it is our job at the 100K team, me for the Department of State, Maggie, and the team, Laura at Partners Americas, to work with you on this. And Laurie is shaking her head because she knows what this is about as well. And we are very lucky because we work very closely with US Embassy teams. And that is also in terms of students going to and from Central America, to and from the Dominican Republic, okay? So we just want to encourage everybody to think carefully, think pragmatically, think creatively, look at the themes, and you have to first decide, okay, my institution in the US or Central America or La República Dominicana, we are very good at STEM or science, or look at the fields, look at the thematic areas in the RFP. That's your first decision. And your second decision is, what would I want my students to learn if they could work with students in the United States or students in Central America? And remember, these are faculty-led programs. So you will always have the lead faculty that might stay on the campus and help plan, and then faculty who help carry out the exchanges. So you really need to think about your team. Who is your team on your home campus to help write the proposal, help think about the proposal, help design it? And then who are the people who are operationally going to take it and make it work during that 10-month contract that Partners in Americas, or 10, 11-month contract? And remember, the idea is that we want you to take a $25,000 grant and build off that. How can the teams put in-kind contributions? How can you think about how you can contribute to the grant to make it more? We've done 7 years of this program, 7 years. And on average, we have seen an amazing compromiso, an amazing effort by teams that win the grants. They take, due to their own creativity and their own internal advocacy of their home institutions and their host institutions, the $25,000 grant becomes almost a $50,000 grant. And we can work with you with your specific questions about how you can take that budget. It's very clear, just like Dr. Laurie said, you take that budget template and you spell out how you see using the $25,000 if you are able to win one of the grants, and then how your teams can add to it, right?
I wanted to mention.
And Laurie, you might want to jump in and add something.
Yeah, that when we were first selected for funding, they had some questions, and so we were able to revise our a couple things. I don't even remember what they were. It was an iterative process to get a few things in order once we were selected as one of the projects that would be funded. So That's it.
I wanted to say another thing. One thing we need to remind everybody, again, I can't say it enough, look at the RFP. The RFP document is your guideline. And then we, of course, are here to help answer questions. You will have Dr. Laurie's wonderful presentation to look back on. I can't say it enough. Our teams at Education USA advisors are here, like Maria Luisa from Guatemala. She's based in Guatemala, but if you're in Honduras or if you're in other countries, we can help with you. We can help. Education USA is another way to get information about building partnerships. But again, we really want to encourage you to think, okay, what are the strengths, the academic areas, the thematic areas that we are strong at my home institution? And again, how can I provide, how can our teams in Central America with the US work together to come up with a very creative, again, pragmatic, very clear proposal how you will provide your students with both virtual and in-person short-term academic exchanges. When I say short-term, I mean it can be a week, it can be 2 weeks, we have 8 weeks, these are not cookie cutter programs. Sometimes these are 2-week exchanges, sometimes they're a week, sometimes they're 4. It depends on your program. So that is another thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to stop and let Laura jump in here.
Thank you, Maggie and Laurie. So yes, to just address, we've answered some of the questions in the chat box. And to go over again, public health is an eligible theme in this competition. And if you're wondering if any theme that you're interested in is eligible, as we've said, feel free to look at the RFP. Pamela Pennington, in response to your question about would it be recommended to have a plan for replacing the in-presence experience given potential changes in travel restrictions. So we definitely recommend that you have a strong virtual component of your program, regardless of the circumstances. What I will say as well is that there are only very extenuating circumstances in which we would permit travel in person not to take place. With that said, we are very flexible with our grantees. As Laurie mentioned, we often extend programs, we'll modify programs. We work with our grantees to be sure that they are able to implement their projects successfully. But generally speaking, in-person travel is required, at least in one direction. So at least from Latin America and the Caribbean to the US, or from the US to Latin America and the Caribbean. Jorge Rodriguez just asked, would you give preference to an older partnership over a new project? Not necessarily. There are different circumstances. We have funded partnerships that already exist. We have funded brand new partnerships. If you are, the main thing is, are you proposing a new innovative program? If you are proposing a program with an existing partner that already has been funded or already exists, then that's probably going to be less competitive. Laurie, you actually got a question from, give me a second, I'm scrolling back up to it, from Victor Bustinza, and he asked, would you please share how you address the requirements for cost share and the sustainability of the program beyond the duration of the 100K grant?
So in terms of cost share, I just knew that my university was not going to give up the little 20% that they could get in indirect, and so I didn't fight that battle. I wish it was different, but it wasn't. When I went to my chair said that in the future, you know, we have department funds, or we call them gift funds, that she would be willing to use that money to pay for travel of US students to have the opportunity to go to Guatemala. And also, if I wanted, you know, I was teaching the course in the spring semester and I wanted to use a couple of $1,000s to bring a student from Guatemala to the US as part of that course, she would be willing to do that. So, and then there's a lot of other funding around for the student travel. So those were the ways that we were able to do the sustainability. We get the course, we do the preliminary pilot course, and then we get the course more developed in the second year once we have the time to go through the whole planning process that the international education wants. And then we just did it that way. So I also wanted to say, though, that we had a student come from Guatemala, one student, and he was supposed to stay 6. He stayed quite a bit longer, but the whole time he was here, people, both at Department of State, we had several conversations about how to get him home safely, and there was never any concern other than the student safety. So people will work with you to get the kids there, but they're always going to make the safety of the students the top priority. So I was really impressed by that. It was always, what are we going to do for Jose to help him get home safely? And that was the focus of everything. So.
Thank you. And then a follow-up question, Laurie, were the students involved in the exchange, did they belong to the same academic program?
No, that's one of the things I really liked about ours. I wanted to get students from different disciplines. So there was a bit of a problem because we wanted it to be an upper level course. For that, we need intermediate level courses, but I have colleagues in anthropology that I talked to, and they were excited to allow their students to anthropology credit for it. So the course was cross-listed and there was biology credit for it. We only had 4 students the first year, and 3 of them were, I think, from biology and 1 from anthropology, but it worked. And 1 was a graduate student, I think, from computer science. So we did have a diverse group. I would love to get someone from geology involved in it, and probably, the faculty in those departments will let you have the students do an independent study if they need credit for their major or something in order to graduate. I found that my colleagues very excited about it and very willing to help out with things. So I hope you all have the same experience.
Great, thanks so much. I think we'll close out now our question and answer. And if we didn't get to any of your questions, we will be sending a Q&A report in the follow-up email, and it'll be made available on our website. And we'll provide written answers to all the questions that were asked today. And we did get a couple questions as well on how you can find a partner institution. So we have various resources that we've listed out here, and I'll also let Maggie speak a little bit to this as well.
Thanks, Laura. I don't know that I need to add anything to your great slide here, but a lot of you are asking questions or have curiosity. And so we want to say there are lots of ways to find partner institutions. And in addition to all of these that are listed, I would remind everybody to just think about what Dr. Laurie said, that sometimes it's right there on your own, your own campus or your own facultad or your own department. Sometimes it's about finding people on your home institution or your home university, college, community college, technical training institute. You might already have existing faculty exchanges or types of partnerships that are going on. So also think about the network on your own home campus, right? And then also, just like on this form, just like you're seeing on this slide, there's Education USA Advising Centers. There's the Innovation Network, which is the 100K Innovation Network. That is our network, the 100K network. Right now, there's over 2,400 institutions and people from all over the Americas, the US, Latin America, the Caribbean. So that's another way to find out information. Es una plataforma también para conectar. And then just like Laura said, connect with others on this webinar. That's a huge, just like a lot of you are already doing in the chat box. That's exactly how to start the conversations. It's about starting that conversation. So I'd say this is a key slide for everybody to think about. Gracias, Laura and Dr. Laurie.
Yes, no problem. As I said in the chat box, we did collect some information from you regarding if you were looking for a partnership, and we did that for our last set of webinars as well, where we had 250 institutions. So that's another great resource for you. We asked for your country and your academic areas of interest for you to connect with potential partners. And then we have all these other tools that Maggie mentioned to help you get connected. And with that, I think we're ready to finish up for the day. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are always here to answer your questions. We have an inquiry form on our website. You can also email us directly at 100kstrongamericas@partners.net. And as I mentioned, we will be sending all of these resources to you in a follow-up email. And I'll allow Maggie and Laurie to say any closing words if they would like.
No, just thanks to everybody. Seguimos en contacto, seguimos adelante. Anímanse is what I would say. Anímanse, get excited. We're here to continue to answer questions. And a huge thank you to Dr. Laurie Stevens. Huge thank you, Laurie, for what you and your team do.
And a huge thank you to you. And I'm happy to answer any questions people have. My email's in the slides, so contact me if you have any questions.
Yes, great. And we will be sharing this slide, or excuse me, this presentation with you, so you'll have access to all of this information. Thank you all. We look forward to receiving your applications, and we hope you were able to learn some valuable information today. Have a great rest of your day.